It's the final day of the challenge and I've got one more transformation to start and finish. It's currently a bit dark, cold, wet and windy, but hopefully it'll be brightening up later and we'll be able to look at the results of all the challenges and decide whether they've been a failure or a success. The fourth challenge is going to be upstairs. And it's going to involve taking the tiles off the floor of this section of the room, which is the area above the room and the passageway that I was working in yesterday. Today I'm just going to be lifting up the tiles and stacking them over there. I won't be cleaning them up or taking them outside. That'll be a task for another day. Preserving any of these tiles is going to be quite tricky. A lot of them are already broken. Some have got very fine cracks that as soon as you touch they break. And so far these are the ones that have broken when I've lifted them out. And when you do actually manage to lift one out whole, like I have with these ones, it comes out with a lot of material. So it's going to be challenging. It's quite frustrating work because I really want to save as many tiles as possible. And sometimes you look at a tile beforehand, like this one, and it appears to be in pretty good condition. You take care trying to take it out and it immediately cracks. Other times you manage to lift it out and it comes out with a huge amount of material, which means that I'm going to have to do a lot of work if I want to save the tile. And then other times you brush off the tile and you can see it's already cracked and you know that you're not going to be able to save it. So frustration, 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 but at least I'm getting there and I've almost finished. Whoopee! The tile lifting part of the challenge is now done. And next I've got to tidy up the rubble to try and keep to a minimum the amount of dust that's going to blow around the house from this surface. Whew. And that is the end of the second part of the challenge. I'm going to do a tiny bit more tidying up and then I'll show you the results. There's a lot of dust sitting on top of this surface now, so to stop that blowing all through the house, I'm just going to spray a little bit of water on it to help pack it down. And with that done, I've now completed all 4 of my challenges. Yes! The even better news is that it's now a lovely bright day and the conditions are perfect for showing you the results of all 4 challenges. But to do that, I think I'm going to change into something a little bit brighter because this poor old jacket's taken a bit of a battering over the last few days. So now I've got on my special bright and positive challenge review kit. At the start of the day, this room looked more like this. And the challenge was to lift up all the tiles of this section and then tidy up the rubble and material beneath. And I think I've done a pretty good job at tidying up this surface and organising the tiles over there for work in the future. I've actually taken off enough material that was beneath the tiles so that you can now actually see the top of the vaulted ceiling in the room below. A lot of the tiles on the floor were already broken, and when I was lifting them out, a lot more broke, but some did stay in one piece, although a vast majority of them came out with a huge amount of material on top. I've stacked these ones up here, and I've got a pretty big question to ask myself as to how much effort I actually want to spend trying to recover these tiles. Thankfully, some tiles, albeit a very small number, I managed to lift off the floor pretty cleanly, and they're in pretty reasonable condition for a bit of a tidy up and use in the future. The hardest part of this challenge by far was picking up all the rubble and material off the floor and then taking it to the window and throwing it out. I must have done that 100 times and it was pretty exhausting. But as you can see from the pile down here, I managed to throw out an awful lot of material. And having all of this material out of that room already, it's going to save me a lot of time in the future. So while I might not have saved as many tiles as I wanted, and I've got a lot of work if I want to do anything with those tiles, I would consider today's challenge a success. The third challenge, which I worked on yesterday, was in this dark room. And this is how it looked beforehand. And the first part of the challenge was to remove the tiles from all of the floor and a fair amount of the earth that was beneath them. And this is the result. And then for the second part of the challenge, I had to remove a whole lot of tiles and bricks and other material from this section here. This is how it looked before. And this is how it looks now from this side and how it looks from here. One of the reasons for the second bit of work was to enable me to move the wheelbarrow through that doorway into there and into there direct without having to go over any steps. And I think it's been a pretty big success. I'm very pleased with the results of the third challenge and I definitely consider it a big success. Now it's time for a review of the second challenge, which is of the cleaning up of this wall here. The second challenge was to tidy up the wall behind me, taking off the remnants of some plaster and then cleaning out the mortar in the joints between the stones. This is how the wall looked a couple of months ago before I first started doing some work on it. And then this is how the wall looked before I started the challenge. And this is how the wall looks now. This is a different view of the wall before the challenge started. And now you can see the pretty dramatic change. And here's an even closer look where you can really see how the colours of the stones have come out, having had the plaster taken off them. And you can clearly see the joints where the mortar has been removed. And with a bit of repointing, I think this wall could indeed look very beautiful. I'm really pleased with how this wall has cleaned up. Therefore, I consider the second challenge a big success. And for the sake of completeness, here's another look at the result of the first challenge, which when we reviewed a couple of days ago, I was pretty clear had been a failure. However, when I turned up this morning after the rain last night, it's fair to say that the part of the wall that I had cleaned was actually looking pretty good. Although now it doesn't look like a particularly dramatic transformation. I also wanted to find out by doing this challenge just what the condition of the wall was beneath the render. So I now know a little more clearly. So in that sense, it's been a little bit of a success. But overall, unfortunately, challenge number 1 was a fail. At the start of the week, when I set myself the challenge of making 4 transformations from different parts of the house in just 4 days, I knew it was going to be hard work and a pretty big ask. So at the end of it, I'm really pleased that 3 of those bits of work I would consider a success. I'm even more pleased that by having that challenge in place, it's been a real motivator for me and I've managed to keep pushing and working hard throughout. It's that sort of energy and motivation that I'm going to need if I'm going to be able to carry on and complete the renovation of this house. So I think there might well be some more challenges coming up in the future.